Thoughts come and thoughts go.
It's our ability to think about our thinking. Because awareness doesn't mean that we're eliminating our thoughts.
Our attention naturally leans towards the future.
Every thought you've ever had, you've noticed.
Now we've accumulated decades of experiences.
Imagining the future or actually living in the present.
Neither the past nor the future is where our creative power exists.
It's what allows us to step outside. Maybe you've spent your whole life trying to fix.
Can't look at anything that you've done with judgment.
Hi, I'm Briana Hetherington.
I'm Jen Hatcher. And I'm Kat Gottlieb.
Welcome to the Conscious Creator Community Podcast. We are over the moon excited to share our wisdom, experiences, and valuable insights to becoming the best version of yourself. Can I ask you a question that philosophers, psychologists, and spiritual teachers have been wrestling with for thousands of years? Who are you? Not your career, not your accomplishments, not your personality, not your past, not even your thoughts. Because here's something fascinating. Every thought you've ever had, you've noticed. Even the anxious ones, the joyful ones, the embarrassing ones, you've watched them arrive and you've watched them leave. So if you can observe your thoughts, who exactly is doing the observing? Hi, I'm Briana Hetherington, and I'm here with my extraordinary co-hosts, Jennifer Hatcher and Kat Gottlieb. And this is the Conscious Creator Community Podcast, where we explore the human experience, mind, heart, and soul. And this is the second segment on awareness, awakening to who we really are. Today, we're going to explore one of the most liberating ideas I've ever encountered, and I have a feeling it's going to change the way you think about yourself forever. Maybe you've spent your whole life trying to fix the wrong person.
Ooh, I remember the first time somebody asked me that question of, if you're watching your thoughts, who's doing the watching? And honestly, it kind of stopped me, and I was like, I need to take a second with that one, because I had always assumed I was my thoughts. If I thought I wasn't good enough, I believed it and acted on it, right? If I thought I was anxious, then I assumed I was an anxious person. If I thought I was failing, well, okay, you get where this is going. But when I really sat with that question, I realized something. Thoughts come and thoughts go. And I think we have something like 60,000 thoughts a day, right? But the one noticing them never leaves. And that realization gave me something I had never experienced before and desperately needed, which was a little space, a little breathing room. Instead of going along with every thought, instead of being swept away by every emotion, and sometimes very powerful emotions, I could pause and simply notice, oh, that's a fearful thought, instead of I am fear. And that teeny shift changed so much for me.
Ooh, well said, Jen. And what you're describing actually has a name in psychology. It's called metacognition. It's our ability to think about our thinking. Researchers consider it one of those defining characteristics of human consciousness. It's what allows us to step outside of an experience and observe it. instead of automatically becoming it. Our brains evolve to help us survive. They're constantly scanning for danger, making predictions, creating shortcuts. That was incredibly useful when our ancestors needed to avoid predators. But today, those same survival mechanisms often convince us that an uncomfortable conversation, a mistake at work, or somebody else's opinion is a threat. Metacognition gives us a pause button that Jen was talking about. Instead of immediately reacting, we become curious. And curiosity is where awareness begins, like Kat spoke about in our previous episode. Your brain's first thought isn't always your wisest thought.
Yeah, here's to that. I absolutely love that idea. Because I think curiosity is one of the highest forms of awareness. One of the books that profoundly influenced me was The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. I think we've mentioned it before. And he introduces this wonderfully simple but incredibly profound idea that there's a voice inside our heads. It's constantly talking, commenting, analyzing, judging. It's planning, it's replaying conversations, it's imagining the future conversations, it's creating all kinds of stories, just completely just chattering all the time. And most of us spend our entire lives assuming that voice is who we are. But Michael Singer asks a simple question, and that is, who's listening to the voice? That question completely shifted something inside me. Because if I can hear the chatter, then maybe I'm not the chatterer. Maybe I'm the awareness behind it. Maybe thoughts are simply passing clouds, and awareness is the sky. The clouds come and go. The sky remains. So that metaphor gave me so much freedom because suddenly I didn't have to believe every thought simply because I thought it. Just because you think something doesn't make it true.
Okay, Kat, how much would the world change? People just process that for a second. Just because you think something doesn't make it true. Like, mind blown, right? So, along that lines, I want to admit something. I still have days that I forget that. I'll wake up and my brain instantly starts going into a story or it will start running through the list of things to do, especially if I don't get a lot of sleep the night before. If I have a rough night of sleep, my brain goes into hyper overdrive instantaneously. It happened this morning, so real time I'm telling you about this, right? So that story it starts creating, you should be further along. You're behind. Here's your list. You didn't handle that well. Like literally before I get out of bed or even have been awake 5 minutes, I've accepted all of that as fact and I'm feeling anxious and I am feeling behind. And I have to take a conscious moment and ask myself, is that actually true? Or is that today's narration? Is that what I'm telling myself because of XYZ? And including this morning, that simple question has become one of my favorite tools. Not because the difficult thoughts disappear, but because it's reminding me I have a choice and I don't have to believe that. I don't have to listen to that.
Oh, I love that. I have a choice. I give myself permission. And I'm curious, have either of you ever believed something about yourself for years only to discover it wasn't actually true at all?
A couple years ago, I ran a marathon, but the backstory behind this is that I've wanted to run a marathon for many, many, many years. And over the years, I would mention this to people. I say, oh man, that's one of my dreams. I'd love to do that. And people would say things back to me like, you're not an athlete. You could never do that. Somebody once told me, well, you don't have the body of a runner, so like, don't even try. And I always chose to believe other people's opinion about my ability to do this major, major goal that I wanted to accomplish. So it was a couple years ago when I finally, I think, was evolved enough and had done enough, personal work where this idea of awareness really struck me. And I chose right then and there, I was no longer going to believe everybody else's opinions. And what I was going to do is pick one topic every year that I wanted to bust the myth that I believed about myself. So the year that I chose to say, I'm going to run a marathon and I'm going to choose to believe in my ability to do it. And that idea took me through, the whole 9 months of training until I actually ran the marathon. And it was very symbolic to me that it's our choice to believe other people's opinions of ourselves. And I would recommend to all our listeners is don't choose somebody else's opinion. Make them yourselves. And so that was my story of how, awareness, how it's affected me.
Yeah, it's none of your business what other people think of you.
Exactly. Yes.
Won't
Yes.
put any attention or energy there. But I do think freedom begins the moment you stop believing every story your mind tells you. And I think what Kat shared is such an important distinction, because awareness doesn't mean that we're eliminating our thoughts. It means that we're changing our relationship with them. And neuroscience supports this. Studies on mindfulness have consistently shown that simply observing thoughts without immediately reacting to them can reduce emotional reactivity and strengthen areas of the brain involved in attention and emotional regulation. And it changes how the brain functions completely. Here's something worth thinking about. Maybe the greatest obstacle to your future isn't your past. It's your attachment to it. That leads perfectly into another idea that had a tremendous influence on all three of us: presence. Because awareness isn't just noticing your thought. It's noticing where your attention lives. And if we're honest, most of us spend very little time actually living today. We're either replaying something that already happened in the past or rehearsing something that hasn't yet happened in the future. One of the people who has helped millions of people understand this concept exactly is Eckhart Tolle in his book, The Power of Now. His centralized message is beautifully and simply articulated. Life only happens in this moment, not yesterday, not tomorrow, only here and now. The present moment isn't where life interrupts your plans. The present moment is your life. The only place transformation happens is the present moment.
Yeah, when that really hit me when I started to actually live it. And when I first read The Power of Now, it did help me to realize I wasn't actually living very much of my life. I was never in the present unless I was like reading a book with my daughter. I was always very present for that. But really, I was reliving a lot of conversations. I was replaying mistakes. I was wondering if I said the wrong thing. I was planning tomorrow. I was trying to figure out how to make other people happy. I was thinking about next month. I was trying to solve the problems that already existed or didn't exist yet. And in the meantime, my life was still happening around me, sometimes quietly and sometimes so loud, but I was still so like in my head that I wasn't being present. And I truly believe there's so many listeners that can identify with that and connect with that because we miss the beautiful moments we're living right now when mentally we're somewhere else. And I'm going to call out this thing right here, right? When you're on your devices, even in the present moment, you're mentally somewhere else. You're not really in that moment. So I challenge you to think about that as well and how often your devices are taking away from your present moment.
Yeah. Oh, we are spending way too much time not in the present moment as a collective species. And all we have to do is be exactly where our feet are here and now in this extraordinary moment. And it's funny and interesting, Jen, that you mentioned, the mind tends to wander. The day can sometimes, run your day rather than you running the day. And psychologists actually have a term related to this. It's called mental time travel. Our brains constantly revisit the past and simulate the future. The ability is actually remarkable. It helps us learn, it helps us plan, it helps us survive. But when it becomes excessive, it can also become the source of anxiety, regret, and chronic stress, along with depression if we're living in the past. And modern neuroscience suggests our brains are prediction machines. They're constantly asking, based on everything that has ever happened before, what do I expect next? That works wonderfully, unless our past was painful. Then our brain begins predicting pain, even when none exist, which is why awareness matters so much. It interrupts that prediction.
I've actually thought about this quite a bit. And I think the answer changes depending on where we are in life. When we're younger, our attention naturally leans towards the future. As teenagers, we're just like thinking about the weekend or maybe graduation, college, the first apartment, the career we hope to have. We're constantly imagining like what's next. But something interesting happens as we age. Eventually, when we have more history behind us than possibility in front of us, now we've accumulated decades of experiences, successes, but also heartbreaks, lessons, regrets, triumphs, all of it. And I think many people begin living more in the past, in their memory, than in the future possibilities. It's not because they've done anything wrong. It's simply where the mind seems to naturally go. And if you've ever, sit with seniors, you know what I'm talking about. It's simply where the mind just naturally wants to go at that point in our life. But here's what manifestation has taught me. Neither the past nor the future is where our creative power exists. Our point of manifestation, where our think, feel exists, is only right now, this moment, this conversation, the choice that we make right now. So the present isn't a passive thing. It's the birthplace of every future we'll ever create. You cannot create tomorrow while emotionally living in yesterday.
Oh, so well said, Kat. The present moment is the only moment. So simple but profound. And I'd love to hear both of your thoughts. Do you think most people, especially today, spend more time remembering the past, imagining the future, or actually living in the present?
Okay, I have a multi-part answer to this question you posed to us. So part number one is because we repeat so many of our same thought patterns, right? I think so many people do spend way too much time living in the past and repeating those same thought patterns that they have. That being said, I do believe people are trying to become more aware and in so doing, so many people are exhausted because they're trying to live in all three places at once. It's really a journey, right? So many people are still carrying the heavy weight of yesterday or the patterns of yesterday, or I felt this yesterday. And so that causes them to worry about tomorrow. And so now we're worrying about what's going to happen tomorrow. And they're missing today. They're missing that present creative opportunity of today. And it's honestly just a heavy, exhausting, mentally taxing way to live. And I've also noticed that for many people, slowing down feels very uncomfortable. Moments of silence, taking time to meditate, taking time out for ourselves, not getting through the whole list in a day, like, that's super uncomfortable. But silence finally lets us hear everything we've been avoiding.
Completely agree. And I think this is really relevant for our listeners who are on their path to figuring out how to live consciously and how to intentionally create their existence. And it's because what we need to know about awareness is that we need to begin with it with compassion, because the goal should not be to criticize ourselves for wandering or for letting our mind go in different directions, in the past and in forward. That's simply what the mind likes to do. But here's the thing, and this is what's really important for everybody to understand. With practice, we can learn to bring ourselves back to the present moment. And I love the word practice. It means so much to me, because what it means is practice just means you're trying again and again. It's repetition, right? And that's how you reprogram your mind and recreate your neural pathways. So, just practice staying in the present. Just practice again and again. And this also is one of the reasons why I absolutely love the idea of wonderment, because wonderment naturally anchors us into the present moment. It's like when you are standing in front of an incredible sunset, or seeing a child discover something for the first time. You're just simply enjoying the present moment. It's one of the easiest ways I know to get back to the present moment. So wonderment isn't an escape from reality. It's a return to it.
Oh, I love that, Kat. If you guys haven't gotten a copy of Via Wonderment, I mean, it is just extraordinary and completely changed my life. But we have a whole episode on that. Thank you for sharing that, Kat. I mean, I think that was so well said. And I think there's another fascinating piece of neuroscience here. And studies on mindfulness have shown that regularly practicing present moment awareness strengthens areas of the brain responsible for our attention, emotional regulation, and self-awareness. Researchers have demonstrated that mindfulness can literally reshape neural pathways over time through neuroplasticity, which means awareness isn't simply a mindset. It's training your brain. Every time you notice a thought without immediately believing it, you're strengthening new neural pathways. And every time you choose curiosity over, or you choose wonderment over an reaction. You're literally practicing a different neuro pathway in your brain. And it's available to anyone willing to practice awareness. So every moment of awareness is a repetition. Every repetition is rewiring. And when we really think about this, right? When we go to the gym, we're lifting. The first day we're in the gym, we're not feeling different. We're not starting to think different, and we're not starting to look different. This takes a little bit of time. And by week 2, we're kind of feeling, a little bit better mentally. And by week 3, all of a sudden we're like, ooh, those muscles are looking good. It's the same thing in your brain. And your neuroplasticity can actually be fully rewired within 66 days.
Ooh, I love that. So, when we're talking about awareness and slowing down and rewiring, I'm always blatantly honest. This was really hard for me. And I know I'm not the only person out there. So I want to share this. I had a previous belief, again, we talked about it in like episode 1 of this, that basically I had to be a workaholic to earn security, to earn my worth, to feel safe. And that's not true, by the way. So if you believe that, I encourage you to slow down and start dissecting where you got that belief, because you weren't born with it. You got it somewhere. But when I started slowing down, that was really blatantly evident to me of that I couldn't see it before. I couldn't see it in my 20s. And quite honestly, I didn't even really see it in my 30s, that me being a workaholic was taking away from being present. It was taking away from my life. And when I reflect back, I missed so much of my older daughter's childhood because I was trying to create this security and this safety for her that I didn't believe I had. And when I slowed down, I was able to see kind of that replay back. And so with my younger daughter, I make deliberate time. I slow down. I live in the present. My house has slime in carpets, which I still don't like, by the way. Like, slime is not cool. But taking the time to paint with her, taking the time to bake with her, taking the time to, again, slime, of all the things. But those are core memories for her. It brings her joy. And me spending that slowed down time with her and being present brings me joy in ways that being a workaholic never could. And I feel so much more safe and secure than putting in extra hours at the office ever could have brought me. But if I didn't take the time to slow down and dissect where that thought came from and what I believed, and if it was true, I never would have been able to have the moments I'm having now.
You bring up something that is, so important, but also for anybody who still has young kids or grandkids or nieces and nephews, is the idea of like, watch how they live. And if there's ever like a motivation to get you to really understand how to live in the present, it's that, right? Like, you want to be creating good memories for them, and you want them to remember you. I just had a conversation. I'm going to bring this up. I just had dinner with some other friends with a woman who was very much like us, where she's now retired. She sold a business. She was very successful, but she had to be a scrappy single mom for many, many years. And she was just telling me that she was watching some old videos, and her oldest son was the one who at the time was manning the camera. It was back in the days of the video cameras. And she says it really hit her hard and kind of hurt hurt her, because in there she was on the couch, and it was in the day of the landlines. So she was on the phone. She was a salesperson, a car salesperson of all things back in the day. And she was having some kind of business conversation, and her son came up to her with a camera and said, "Hey, Mom, smile. I'm taking a video." And she said, "Not right now, right now." And so she saw that video, and she said it was like an arrow to her heart, because she realized she had been living separately from her kids, who just naturally are more in the moment. And of course I told her, I said, you can't judge yourself, because the reason why you are here in this very beautiful reality that you live in now is because you were the single parent who was making it happen for her children. So you can't judge yourself for it. But, those are those moments that I think any of us, if we could go back, would change. So for anybody listening today, I think it's just really worthwhile to stop yourself and to ask, where am I living right now? Am I replaying the past, or am I rehearsing the future? Am I worrying about things that I shouldn't? Or is this moment one that I really want to be a part of, right? So I ask myself those questions all the time now. And it's amazing how often those questions gently brings me back to the only place where life is actually happening, and that is in the now. But here's the thing. I really want to encourage everyone, as I encouraged my friend when she was telling me that story, is you can't look at anything that you've done with judgment. You can't even look at yourself in the present moment with judgment. Instead, the most productive way is to ask yourself those questions with curiosity, because of awareness of what we're teaching, becoming more aware of yourself and consciously choosing the present moment. It's not about perfection, my friends. There's no such thing as perfection. Nobody does this perfect. But it's just simply choosing what you notice and what you choose to do about it as a result.
Well, thank you for joining us in this present moment. And we've explored something incredibly freeing here today. Maybe you aren't your thoughts, and you aren't your fears, and you are not your past. You're the awareness that has quietly witnessed all of it. And if that's true, then every moment gives you another opportunity to choose differently. Before next week's episode, I'd love to leave everyone with 3 questions to take a few quiet moments this week and simply journal to yourself. Okay, no overthinking, just observing and becoming the awareness behind your thoughts and how you feel. What thought about yourself have you repeated so often that you have accepted it as truth? Question 2, where do you spend most of your mental energy? Is it in the past, the future, or the present moment? And question 3, if you were no longer identified with those stories you tell yourself, who might you become? And let's end the day the way we always do. 1 sentence, 1 truth, 1 thing we hope stays with you this week.
You don't have to believe every thought that enters your mind.
Awareness doesn't ask you to become someone new. It invites you to remember who you've always been beneath the noise.
Curiosity is the doorway to transformation. Stay curious. Next week, we're taking everything we've discovered and putting it into action with you, because awareness is the only first step. The next question becomes, how do we intentionally transform? For centuries, philosophers used one fascinating word to describe that process: alchemy. The ancient dream of turning lead into gold. Today, we'll explore a different kind of alchemy, turning fear into courage, pain into wisdom, setbacks into purpose, and perhaps discovering that your greatest struggle has been preparing you for your greatest contribution all along. We'll see you next week.